So the last major thing we're going to do in C++ is something called functions. We might get to something called structures after this, but that's only for a day. But functions are very important. Especially it's important to understand this, especially if you want to go on to Comp 2 and or AP, and they both focus on something called object-oriented programming. So functions, what are they? They're blocks of code that have a name just like a variable name. Actually, they have the same rules, and they kind of live outside of main. You kind of jump outside of main and go to that function, then you go back to main and so forth. Why are they used? Well, they're for organization, code reuse, and for breaking down problems into manageable chunks, right? So, an example here of code reuse. Let's say I have some algorithm that takes about 1,000 lines of codes to run, right? And let's say in that program we need to use that algorithm 50 times, right? Now we're just writing small programs. In the real world, programs are huge. Tons of people write them. So that's 50 times 1,000. That's 50,000 lines of code. Well, if you place that algorithm, those 1,000 lines of code, in a function, right? Um, all you have is that one function with 1,000 lines plus the 50 lines of code to use that function or call it. Um, so that's only 1,050 lines compared to the 50,000 lines. So you save a lot of code. So your programs are much shorter. Um, when we use functions, we can send data to a function to be used inside that function, and or we can return data back to where it was used or called. When we send data to a function, we can send one or more. If we return something, we can only return one piece of data, right? That's probably where these functions got their names. They're like functions in algebra, right? Where um, you can only have one answer to return back in a function. Um, in order to use functions, we have to do three things. Okay. First of all, we have to declare the function. Much like we declare a variable, we have to declare a function, and functions declarations occur. We write them. It's only one line of code for each, but we write them before void main void for that line. They take on the following syntax, right? The type being returned if it's for example, if returning an integer, you put int. If it's returning a decimal number, you put double. Then the name, again, the name you give it has to follow the same rules as a variable. Can't start with a number. Can't be a keyword. Um, can't have any other symbols besides dollar sign, underscore, A through Z, caps, lowercase, and the numbers, right? And then types of data, types and names of data being passed. If you have more than one, they're separated by commas. If you're not passing anything to it, you put the keyword void, and then you have a semicolon. The second thing is for functions, we need to actually write the function, right? This is the actual function itself. So there's two parts to a function. You have a header, right? And that's pretty much the same thing as this declaration, except you don't have the semicolon, right? You have a header and you have the body of the function. And this is where all the code is processed in there. And thirdly, we need to actually use the function. No point in writing a function without using it. Okay, we call that calling the function. Now, I teach this breaking up of functions into four different types. If you look up, and I call them type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. If you look this up, okay, that nobody else teaches them like this, or there's not really a type 4 function. I just teach them in this manner. So tomorrow we'll start type 1, which is a function that doesn't has no data sent to it and it doesn't return anything, right? If you notice, void main void, that's a type 1 function. And then we'll go into type 2, then we'll go to type 3, and then type 4. And type 4 is really just a combination of 2 and 3. So that's it for now. Just an overview. You're not going to understand functions till you actually see them work and see them in action with demonstrations and stuff. But again, they're very important. And that's it for notes today.